All right, so both of these images came from the same AI, the same brand, same day, and the difference is one single process. And it's not better prompts. All right, prompting, in my opinion, is completely dead, which is part of the reason why we're seeing so much slop being posted onto social media every day. I keep seeing people saying, hey, I'm posting 9 posts a day onto social media, and I look at their posts and they're absolute garbage and they have 0 engagement and people are sick and tired of it. If I drive around here where I am in Bali, you see the crappy restaurants and the crappy estate agents all using AI generated images from ChatGPT, and it's very obvious that it was generated by AI. Okay, so in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down a workflow that I just painstakingly tried to discover and found a way to create anti-slop images and a brand photography style that looks premium and sexy and awesome that you can then go out and use across your entire brand, whether it be social media, marketing, or whatever the use case is. You're going to be confident that your brand does not look like AI slop and that it ultimately conveys a sense of emotion, which is really the purpose of marketing in the first place. All right, so let's get into it. Now, I'm going to break this down for you super simply. So all you have to do is copy and paste the process I'm about to give you. All right, guys. So the process we're going to be taking you through is a very simple 3-step process. So first and foremost, you need brand context. All right. So this is going to allow the skill that we're going to be giving you to essentially analyze your target audience, their pains, their desires, so we can create brand imagery that speaks to your target audience's soul. If you don't have that, you're just going to be creating random images. All right. So the skill reads your brandbrain.md file, and everyone who's inside of our school community should have this done already. All right. It's this lesson over here, and it's lesson number 5, which will basically take your brand's intelligence and turn it into a simple brand brain file, which you'll be able to drop in and create these image codes from. Now, if you don't have that yet, that's fine. Well, the skill will ask you to fill in a few gaps, and that'll allow you to fill in the blanks yourself. Okay, so it works with or without that. Step 2 is downloading the skill onto Claude, which I'll show you how to do in a second. And that's what's going to analyze your brand data and then turn it into some scenes that we can then drop into Midjourney and start exploring some different image styles and ultimately getting you to land on something that is unique to you. And that's the coolest thing about this process. You're going to have images that look completely custom to your brand, which is the best part about this entire workflow. All right, guys, so you can see I've got my brand scene skill downloaded. So I'm just going to go over to Claude and I'm going to go to customize. I'm going to go add, upload skill, and I'm going to drop it in. Okay, so that's now been dropped in and we're ready to rock. Okay. So inside of a chat, inside of Claude, you can use any model you want, doesn't really matter. I'm going to drop in my brandbrain.md file, okay, which has all of my brand's context, my target audience, my offers, their psychographics, etc., which is important. And I'm going to drop that in and I'm going to say, run the brand scene skill. All right, guys, so you can see here it's breaking down and going into mining mode, which means it's mining my target audience and coming up with specific scenes that we can start running in Midjourney. Okay, so what you'll notice here is it's created 3 scenes for pain-based psychographics and then desire-based psychographics. Okay, but what I want you to focus on here is that it's also created a very specific code for Midjourney, which honestly has been one of the most insane things that I've discovered. I did not know this was even possible. So how Midjourney works is they have, I think it's over 1 billion combinations of style reference baked into Midjourney itself. And so what we're going to do is run this code here, which is Sref random and then repeat 4. Okay, so that means every single generation that it does, it's going to choose a random style reference, and we're just going to run this until we find a vibe and a style that we like. And this is the key to creating anti-slop images, because you're going to be using your own taste and your judgment in this to find a style we like that we can then replicate for images. And at the end of this process, you're going to have a huge bank of content that all looks and feels like it's part of the same brand world. Okay, so I'm just going to copy that one first, go over to Midjourney, and I'm literally just going to paste that in. I've got Sref random repeat 4, and I'm going to run it. Okay, so you can see it automatically starts generating 4 different scenes with very unique styles attached to it. Okay, so you can see already, you know, that's really distinct, and it's got a scene of like my target audience who's struggling with, you know, online business. And then it's got this like crazy art style. It's got a more hyper realistic one. It's got that sort of cartoon vibe. And then also this one, which is kind of crazy. Okay. So that's the first step of the process. Now you can run this as many times as you want. And this is what we're doing right now is we're exploring different styles, completely unique. Okay, guys, so now you can see we've got a huge amount of variety and also scenes that are specific to our target audience, okay? Which is why I've actually been using Midjourney more than Pinterest because it's more relevant to the type of stuff that you're going to be doing anyway. So, you can then start to pick out, this is kind of interesting. So let's just rerun that and see if we can actually start to get a little bit of a vibe going. All right, so I really like this style. This is cool. It's really fresh and it's creative, okay? So you can see now that we've got a specific unique style reference code, okay, which is really the important thing. And that's what we've been doing this whole mining process around in itself. All right. So what we now want to do is we want to take this and we want to run this against all of our other prompts to see if we can replicate this across a range of different scenes before we actually go out and create, 100 to 200 different variants of it. Okay. So I'm going to go to the top here and I'm just going to grab my prompts. I'm going to drop it in and I'm just going to say that, and then style reference. Now, I'm going to run this real quick and I'm going to show you what actually happens when I do this. And you'll see that it's not actually going to be perfect, but it's going to be close. Okay. So a better way to do this is actually to run that and then add our weighting. Okay. So the weights for what we're doing here is SW400 and Stylize 1000. Now, in layman's terms, a style weight SW is basically a parameter that controls how strongly the reference, aka your style code, grips the output. Okay, and that's on a scale of 0 to 1,000. So if we jack that up to 1,000, it's going to give us different results. Okay, so Stylize is basically how loud aesthetics in general get to be. And the style weight is how your code specifically sits in that matrix. Okay, so you can see here, I've got my reference code, I've now got my style weight, and I've got Stylize 1000. I'm going to hit go on that. Okay, so now you can see we're starting to play around with how well the code is actually showing up on the images. Now, you might be asking, why don't I just take that code? Well, you absolutely can. But the beauty of Midjourney is that we're actually crafting and curating a very specific image style, and that's really why I like Midjourney. They don't have an API because the owner of Midjourney specifically said that he wants Midjourney to be a crafting tool. And this is why this is an anti-slop method, because you have the ability to tune your own unique image style that no one else has. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the same thing again, and I'm just going to go style weight 1000, see what happens. And now we're almost getting a little bit too sort of abstract, if you will. Okay. I've got the reference, I've got the style weight, I've got the stylize. I'm now just going to drop in one of these ones that I really like, which is this, because it's got a lot of negative space, which I like. And I'm just going to say use as style. So we've now got the style reference code, style weight, stylize, and we've also got a style reference. Okay. So we should have something that is closer to that world. Okay. Which is bang on. All right. And you can see it starts to create nice negative space, which is really important, specifically when, we're going to be adding text onto this and stuff like that. Okay. So one other little trick I want to show you, and also good practice, is just to delete stuff that you're not necessarily feeling, just so it's clean. But let's say I like this vibe. I like that reference. If there's anything else that I like inside of our explorations, okay, let's just say we like this sort of vibe as well. Then we just add this reference code to it. And you'll see that Midjourney automatically adds 2 reference codes next to each other. All right. And so when we run it like this, it actually combines 2 distinct image styles and creates something that is ultimately, even more unique. Okay. So we've got the colors, and now we've got that sort of line art style to it. And, we can either keep rocking that way. Now, I don't particularly like those, but I just wanted to show you how you can start to combine different styles. Okay, but I'm starting to like this world. Okay, I like the blues. I like the sort of pastel colors. That's kind of interesting. Okay, so what you'll see now is that we've got these 3 specific codes. Okay, we've got 4x5. We've got Sref. We've got SW. We've got Stylize. Okay, so I'm going to drop all of those in right now. Actually, just get rid of 4x5, and I'm going to create a few landscapes. Okay, 16x9. And I'm going to drop that in, and I'm going to take our original reference that I liked, which was this, drop it in as style, and send it. Okay, so I mean, that kind of looks really nice, doesn't it, guys? So you can see now that we're starting to come up with like a really unique brand style that can be used on websites, posters, cards, you know, whatever, whatever, whatever. Let's just actually use a different prompt here. Okay, so this will be environmental, and we'll go 16 by 9s, Sref, SW, Stylize. Okay, so you see now, for this one, we didn't add the image style, and it kind of came out like that. And then for this one, we did the same prompt, same styles, and we added the image style, and you know, we've got this nice, you know, really nice scene actually. Beautiful poster design, just wonderful. Okay, so let's go ahead and do another one. Okay, so we're starting to get somewhere. All right, we're starting to develop our own unique style, okay? And it's really starting to look quite lovely. Let's go ahead with this one. Okay, nice. All right, so, you know, you just want to play around with this. And once you start to get the vibe that you're really starting to enjoy, you can start to just delete, you know, any of the ones that are not sort of living in that world anymore. Because when we come to actually create the batch, we just want to make sure that all of the chosen styles are rocking and rolling, because now it's starting to look like a really nice mood board that we can start to use. Okay, so now that we've done the mining of the codes and we've tested and, you know, we've made sure that it's actually replicatable, we're going to take this little trifecta over here, our code, the SW, and the Stylize that is giving us our, you know, nice approach. We're just going to go into the same chat that we were running our skill, and it says the playbook. Okay, so we've just completed the mining, we've just completed the weighting, and we've also done an audition. Okay, so now we want to lock the brand style. Okay, so we can now just drop that in, and we can say, all right, so the style is locked. Here's the string. And what I want to do now is build up a bank and bulk batch some different concepts and scenes. Now, what this is basically going to tell the skill to do is it's going to go into bulk batching mode. All right, so it's going to give us a bunch of different scenes and prompts, and there's a really cool little technique we're going to use to actually come up and build a huge bank of content that we can then use in any of our automations. So for example, I've got a carousel automation that's taking articles, building carousels directly in code, using our image bank content, so we have unique designs going out every single week. And that's something that I'll show you in the next video. So if you want to see that, drop a comment below and I'll show you exactly how we do that. But just to give you an example, you know, this was a unique image style that we created. And now we've got a whole process built around that where we're actually creating specific carousels and marketing content that use our bank of content for our brand imagery. You can see how that looks and starts to appear on an actual carousel. So if you want to see that video, drop a comment below and I'll tee it up as one of the next ones. Okay, so you can see here the skill is now in bank mode. So it's locking in the triplet and it's going to give us some prompts now. All right, so you can see what it's done is it's actually updated our brand brain for us. So for all of you that are actually working in a brand brain, it's added our actual image doctrine to this. So you can just take this, drop this into Claude Code, and anytime you want to pick this up again, you've got your style reference actually locked and loaded. All right, guys, so what we notice now is the skill has actually created our bank. And you can see that this is actually going to generate 310 images, which is insane, okay? The reason we're able to create so many images by such little prompts is because this is one of the coolest little tricks that I've found inside of Midjourney, is that when you put a prompt, when you put curly braces in a prompt like this, what Midjourney is going to do is it's going to combine late 30s, leaning back in a desk, and everything that's separated by a comma multiple times. So in one prompt, we can actually create multiple different variations of our image multiple times, so we don't have to prompt it over and over again. Okay, guys, so now we're going to go ahead with the curly braces. I'm going to drop it in, and I'm going to show you what happens when you use these. Okay, so we've got our extra reference in there that we like, and we're going to send it. And you'll see that multiple images are going to be generated, and they're all going to be specifically different. All right, guys, so you can see now just in one prompt, we've created multiple variations of our protagonist, who is ultimately our target audience. But you can see we've got a really lovely brand style that's been developed, okay? And we've got a bunch of variants and different styles around it with like a really nice emotional vibes to it, okay? But we've matched, you know, this really, really well, okay? So you can see like this is obviously for social media, which is the sort of format that we've chosen. Which is terrific. Okay, so now all I got to do is go back here and just play around with it again. Okay, so we've got our style in, I add my reference and I hit send. All right, so you can see now it's starting to create, this really awesome variation in the scene, which I just think is wonderful, guys. Okay, so what you'll notice is also because we use curly braces, okay, so we now have like these individual prompts. All right, so if I like this scene, I've just got to go like this, run that again and just say, hello, let's go landscape. 16:9, get rid of that bad boy over there. And then that will just run it once or twice. All right, we're cooking, my friends, we're cooking. Okay, so we've just literally created our own unique brand style, all right? And we can just go through these as many times as we want. Now, what I'm going to change in this skill is rather than, creating so many different variants, like if I just want to make it a little bit less, I can just get rid of these, one of these. Okay, so everything after the comma creates a whole new set. So we just hit that and then it'll create slightly less. Okay, so you got 1, 2, 3, 4, different sets generating here. So 4 specific prompts that have come from the curly braces. All right, so that's really cool. We've got some watercolor variants coming here. I mean, look at, that's a piece of art, my friends. Okay, so just imagine chucking some text on there. We're going to be looking really, really good. Again, beautiful. Okay, these are wonderful. All right, so really, really interesting stuff happening here. Let's go ahead and, test out some of the desire-based ones. All right, guys, so you can see here now it's kind of failed. Okay, so we've had like this really unique sort of vibe going on here, and now it's creating these sort of hyper-realistic ones. And the reason this is happening is because the prompt is clashing with the reference. Okay, so, you're going to have times like that where it kind of screws it up a little bit. Just delete them, move on. All right, so you can see really the skill is really earning its keep. Okay, and that's sort of how we've crafted the skill to give you just a real big variation and a real big set of depth when it comes to your image styles. Okay, so technically now, all we have to do is download our big bank and we're in a good place. All right, so usually what I do at this point is, okay, I've got like a really big bank of content. Now I just want to download all of these in one fell swoop. So I'm going to go ahead and delete all of my other exploration that I don't need. And this is everything that I did today. Okay, so that's all my work from today. So I go organize, I hit today, and then I hit download. And that's 140 images that you now have as your brand style. Okay, so you'll see yesterday I've been going crazy. We were generating some of these beautiful images, all right, that we're now using across our social media. And you can see that the next sort of layer and the next sort of step that we're going to get into is how to actually turn these into social media carousels, posts, ads, everything like that. So again, if you want to see that video, drop a comment below. And welcome to the world of anti-slop social media content that is on brand for you. My friends, have a good one. Peace out.